Tonight, a helicopter into the Hudson, children on board. The breaking news just coming in. The rotor reportedly snapping off and the chopper spiraling into the water. Rescue crews responding in just moments. Authorities say tourists were on board. We will be live with the latest. Stock market whiplash 24 hours after record gains. Stocks down again today. The sell-off coming after Trump continues his trade war with China. The president dismissing the plunging markets during today's cabinet meeting.
We had a big day yesterday. There'll always be transition difficulty, but we had in history, it was the biggest day in history, the markets. So we're very happy with the way the country is running.
Elon Musk in the room despite his public feud with top Trump advisor Peter Navarro. And tonight, the death toll soaring in that tragic roof collapse at an iconic nightclub in the Dominican Republic. At least 9 Americans now among the 221 reported dead. Victor Oquendo is standing by with late reporting from Santo Domingo. Back at home, authorities investigating how a convicted killer sentenced to life in prison was mistakenly released from jail. And this isn't the first time this has happened at the same Georgia prison. The chaotic scene, an author and wife of a rock star shot and wounded in front of her home. Officers say she pointed a gun at them. Plus,
I thought I'd still be in a classroom teaching little third graders.
Instead, you're taking on Google, Amazon, McDonald's.
That's right.
The group of nuns, no stranger to telling corporations what to think. And
having a pet is hard?
Oh my God.
But it's a great journey.
The documentary exploring the unique relationship between humans and our pets.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
And good evening, I'm Phil Lipoff in tonight for Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. There is breaking news from the Supreme Court tonight, what the justices are saying. The Trump administration must now do about that Maryland man the government admitted to sending to a prison in El Salvador by accident. We're going to get into that in just a moment, but we are going to begin with that horrifying crash in New York City today, a helicopter carrying 6 people plunging into the Hudson River. Tonight, all 6 people on board are dead, and crews are pulling that wreckage from the scene. You can see the chopper being moved onto a barge here. The chopper flying low when multiple people reported to ABC they heard what sounded like some sort of sonic boom. Video showing the chopper's fuselage dropping from the sky upside down. We're not going to show the moment it crashed into the water. A short distance away, the rotor blade can be seen spinning through the air before it too hits the water. And we are just learning a family of 5 visiting from Spain, including 2 adults and 3 children, ages 4, 5, and 11, were all on board. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky leads us off from the scene of the investigation with what went wrong.
Tonight, 6 people killed after a helicopter with a family of tourists on board broke apart and plummeted into the Hudson River off New York City. It happened just after 3:15 this afternoon.
Be advised, you do have an aircraft down Holland Tunnel. Please keep your eyes open for anybody in the water.
The tourist chopper going down on the Hudson between Lower Manhattan and Jersey City. This video showing the chopper splashing down, the rotor blades still spinning in the air before it lands in the water. Fire rescue boats and the Coast Guard racing to the spot where it went down. The chopper fuselage upside down. The rough, choppy water just 49 degrees. Law enforcement officials tell ABC News the helicopter was carrying a family, 2 adults and 3 children, tourists from Spain, in addition to 1 pilot.
I saw the helicopter. It was just coming down in that 45 angle, and it went straight into the water. It was a big splash.
Witnesses watching in horror.
It sounded like a sonic boom on my right. So I look up, and literally I just see a helicopter splitting in 2 with the rotor flying off in the sky. It was going so fast and just went straight into the water, and like nothing came up afterwards. It must have just sunk.
And I heard a loud snap, or like a kind of sound barrier breaking sound, and I could see a helicopter falling on its side and splashing the water right next to that red barge over there. And then the rotor on the top fell off as well and then hit the water.
FAA records show the helicopter is 21 years old. Flight radar 24 showing the chopper was in the air over Manhattan for about 15 minutes before it broke apart. It was the helicopter's 6th flight of the day.
Aaron joins us from the scene of that crash now. Aaron, ABC News just getting a statement from the CEO of New York Helicopter Tours. What are they saying?
Yeah, he says, "We are devastated, Phil. This is a company that's been operating in New York since 1998. The company says it has a good safety record, and they are just at a loss for how this occurred today."
Aaron, you talked about that family of 5 on board. It's heartbreaking. The pilot as well. Do authorities think there was any chance of survival here?
It doesn't seem like it, even though we heard from the first responders, Phil, saying they did all they could. Eyewitnesses told us the helicopter came down very fast. The Hudson River is just frigid at this time of year, and rescue boats sped right toward the crash site that's just behind me, closer to the New Jersey side of the river. But by the time first responders arrived on scene, they saw the helicopter had crashed upside down.
Aaron Katersky on this story since the crash. Aaron, thank you. In our nation's capital, another close call at Reagan National Airport, just outside of D.C. A passenger jet struck the wing tip of another plane. Both returning to the terminal were taken out of service. That airport, the scene of several troubling incidents in recent weeks. Our Trevor Ault reports.
Tonight, a taxiway collision at Reagan National Airport. 2 American Airlines planes, one clipping the other, with 6 members of Congress on board.
How do you think you hit the Embraer or the Airbus? It might have been the Embraer. We just heard a loud, like a boom, right as it just like a thunk before we hit the runway.
Both flights were preparing to take off. One passenger jet bound for Charleston, South Carolina, heading to the runway when its wingtip clipped the wing of a New York City-bound passenger jet as it waited on the taxiway.
We can see a piece of a winglet on the ground behind the right wing of the Embraer.
New York Congresswoman Grace Meng could feel the impact.
While we were sitting there, we suddenly felt some shaking. Some of the passengers said that they literally saw it clip the plane and a little piece fell off. As you can see in the back, they're fixing it right now.
Congressman Nick LaLota posting a photo from inside the plane saying thankfully everyone is okay. It follows a string of alarming incidents at Reagan Airport, that deadly January collision between an American Airlines plane and a Black Hawk helicopter that killed 67 people, and just days ago an incredibly close call, a Delta plane taking off, its cockpit alarms going off because Air Force jets were just seconds away from a possible collision.
All right, Trevor, thank you for that. I want to bring in ABC News contributor and aviation analyst John Nance. John, back to the helicopter for a minute. There's a lot to talk about here. It was flying over Manhattan for about 15 minutes before it went down. How rare is a crash like this?
Extremely rare. We have problems with helicopters from time to time. Much of it in terms of flight safety, it has to do with human factors and human errors. But we almost never have a helicopter literally come apart in midair, and that is essentially what happened here.
We see in that video pieces of the chopper seeming to break apart in midair before it all hits the water. What does that say to you about what possibly happened in the air?
What I think is the most likely scenario, but certainly this is not definitive, it's early and the investigation hasn't even really started, is the idea that the blades of the helicopter, 2 blades on the Bell Jet Ranger, somehow were deflected down in the back and began to hit or strike the tail of the aircraft, and that would then result in what we saw. There could be other explanations. There could have been a failure of the main rotor hub, and the whole thing, of course, that holds a helicopter up is the lift that is created by these rotary wings.
And John, getting back to the DC incident, just the latest in a string, even just there, of course, moments after that horrific, deadly crash that you and I were on the air talking about when it happened. Why do planes clip wings, and what's the worst case scenario when something like that happens?
Phil, usually what happens when they clip wings is one or the other of the pilots in the 2 craft have made an improper, well, not improper, that's the wrong word. They made a wrong judgment about how far out there that wingtip was and how much clearance they had with the other airplane. We only can rely on our binocular human vision, and it doesn't really serve us well when that wing is 100 feet out there. So it's usually a matter of having made a bad estimate on where they are. And there are exceptions to that, but for the most part, when you're at the end of a runway, you don't have white lines to put the airplanes on that will keep you separated like you do on the other portions of the airport.
Well, thankfully, no one was hurt in this incident. John Nance, always good to talk to you. Thank you. Breaking news now, the Supreme Court will require the Trump administration to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's the Maryland man who was sent to El Salvador by mistake. Despite having protected legal status, preventing his deportation to El Salvador, where he escaped political violence back in 2011, Abrego Garcia was sent last month to that country's notorious mega prison following what the government said was an administrative error.
If you were to be able to talk to President Trump or anyone from his administration tonight, what would you say to them?
I will tell everybody to put their hand on their heart, to see what a child feels being away from its dad, a wife being away from a husband.
What's been the hardest part for you in all of this?
Knowing if he's okay.
That was our Linsey Davis speaking to Abrego Garcia's wife. Tonight, the family attorney just gave us a statement saying, and we'll quote it for you, "We are pleased with the Supreme Court's decision to uphold Kilmar's rights and hope the government moves quickly to facilitate his return home as ordered. We look forward to welcoming Kilmar home." Our Devin Dwyer joins us now with more on all of this. Devin, what is the Supreme Court exactly ordering the Trump administration to do to remedy this?
Phil, this was a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court upholding a lower court order that it facilitate the return of Mr. Garcia. As you said, he was wrongly sent to El Salvador, to that prison that we've heard so much about with a history of human rights abuses. He was detained in this country. He is an alleged gang member. He denies those affiliations. Those facts aren't in dispute. But an immigration court here in the United States had explicitly said he was not to be returned to El Salvador for fears of threats to his life. That, of course, has now happened, and the Supreme Court, in no uncertain terms, Phil, said that action was illegal on the part of the Trump administration, and that while it shows deference to the administration in its ability and timing to bring him back, it does need to be done in compliance with due process of law, Phil, and that's a very significant development tonight.
You talk about law, Devin. I'm wondering if there's any chance of more legal back and forth on this issue, or will this effectively start the process of bringing Abrego Garcia home?
Well, we'll have to see how the Trump administration responds. They had said they didn't have the power to return him. The Supreme Court apparently wasn't having any of that. They said that the district court order was proper, that this can be done. They expect the government to comply and correct its mistakes. So we'll see if there's further litigation here. We do know his family, his attorneys have said they expect him to come back to the United States. Remember, he is not going to be just let loose in the United States. This is someone that was under a withholding order. But again, this was about righting a wrong, a legal wrong, a moral wrong, and standing up for due process of law. And tonight, Phil, the Supreme Court unanimously did just that. Phil.
Devin Dwyer on the breaking news for us from the Supreme Court. Devin, thank you. And we want to add this, just in the last minute or so, we've gotten a statement from Kilmar's wife. Jennifer says, "I'm anxiously waiting for Kilmar to be here in my arms and in our home, putting our children to bed, knowing this nightmare is almost at its end. I will continue to fight until my husband is home." Next tonight, to the tumble again on Wall Street, 24 hours after President Trump's sudden U-turn on tariffs and the reality sinking in about a major trade war in China. All three majors falling again. The Dow closing down more than 1,000 points. S&P 500 down nearly 189 points. The Nasdaq with the biggest loss, more than 4%. And new numbers out show tariffs may cost American households an extra $4,700 per year. We'll be joined by a Republican congressman in just a moment to discuss this further. But first, senior political correspondent Rachel Scott is at the White House.
One day after markets rallied amid news President Trump had paused many of his sweeping tariffs, tonight Wall Street taking another dive as reality sets in. America's trade war with China is only getting worse. Yesterday, Trump declared he was raising the tax on imported products from China to 125%. Today, the White House clarifying that's on top of another tariff the president imposed on China back in February. The actual tariff now a staggering 145% on all Chinese goods coming into the United States. A tax that economists warn is paid by American businesses, who then pass the cost along to consumers by raising prices. The Dow plunging, At one time today, down 2,180 points, before closing 1,014 points down. But in a cabinet meeting, President Trump and his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent brushing it off.
I don't see anything unusual today.
The president sounding eager to negotiate a deal with China, but publicly at least, China not budging.
Has President Xi reached out at all since the tariff?
Well, I don't want to say who's reached out. I just say that I think it's going to work out, hopefully well.
China accuses the White House of bullying, saying they won't be blackmailed. Today, they announced they're restricting imports of Hollywood movies to their country. Caught in the middle, American families, worried about rising prices. By one estimate, President Trump's tariffs will cost households an average of an additional $4,700 a year. The president acknowledges the pain, today calling it a transition cost.
There'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Already, consumers are feeling the effects. One shopper for athletic wear spotting something different on an invoice from a recent order. A new line that says tariff surcharge, $16.62. Small businesses are feeling it too.
There's multiple levels of impact.
Rita Pineras owns child play toys and books in Washington, D.C.
About 80 to 90% of all toys are manufactured overseas. So we're going to definitely see increases.
I ask her for an example of just how much the president's tariffs will force her to raise prices.
Take Douglas, which is manufactured in China. Right now, the cost of it is $27.99. So it's going to be more than double the price. So I think that is about
more than $60.
$60.
China, just one of the countries whose products are facing tariffs. President Trump has put a 90-day pause on sweeping tariffs against 85 other countries as his team now tries to negotiate new trade deals with them. ABC's Karen Travers asking what happens when that time is up.
Mr. President, if you aren't able to reach the deals that you want to see at the end of the 90 days, will you put those higher tariffs in place or will you extend?
Well, that's what would happen. I mean, if we can't make the deal that we want to make or we have to make or that's good for both parties, it's got to be good for both parties. And then we go back to where we were.
Go back to the numbers that you announced last week.
I think so.
You wouldn't extend the pause?
Yeah. We'll have to see what happens at that time.
Rachel joins us now from the White House. Rachel, the president not really giving a firm answer there. How does this impact Wall Street and business owners?
Well, Phil, many economists say it's that lack of clarity right there. The president unable to give a firm answer on whether he would extend that 90-day pause on tariffs for most of America's trading partners if they do not reach a deal that is causing the type of uncertainty, the markets being volatile, pushing Wall Street on edge. And it's not just Wall Street, of course, over on Main Street. These business owners that we've been talking to say the unpredictability also impacts their bottom line. That business owner I talked to today said that she has had less people purchasing toys because they just don't know whether prices are going to increase and whether or not they're going to stay at those levels, Phil.
All right, Rachel Scott from inside the White House. Rachel, thank you. And joining us now is Republican Representative Dan Newhouse of Washington. Congressman, thanks so much for taking the time. I do appreciate it. And I'd like to begin by playing you what President Trump said Wednesday afternoon versus what he was saying earlier this week. Let's listen.
I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid.
Would you be open to a pause in tariffs to allow for negotiations?
Well, we're not looking at that. We have many, many countries that are coming to negotiate deals with us, and they're going to be fair deals. And in certain cases, they're going to be paying substantial tariffs. They'll be fair deals.
There was some conflicting information, but the White House said this was the plan all along. I'm wondering, do you think there's been a strategy here?
Well, I think certainly there's been a strategy to level the playing field with our trading partners, and I support that. I think we can compete with anybody in the world if it's a fair competition. And I think certainly the move of pausing the tariffs, giving us 90 days or giving other countries 90 days in order to work out a deal with the United States and our trading partners, I think that's a very smart thing to do. And he's right. There were a lot of people that were expressing a lot of concern about what was happening in the markets with our trading partners. And so I think he took a very positive step by giving us time to work out these deals with our trading partners.
I want to talk to you about this bill that you introduced along with fellow Republican Don Bacon that would require congressional review on tariffs. You have 89 days, as we were just talking, of course, other than those China tariffs, which are still in effect. Speaker Johnson, though, doesn't appear inclined to act on your bill. Do you think the measure has any chance of passing?
Well, I think there's a lot of interest in it. Absolutely. You know, Congress over the decades has conceded a tremendous amount of authority to the executive branch. And I think with tariffs and trade being at top of everybody's minds, this is a good opportunity to kind of pull back some of that authority to Congress. I think people of either party, whether you have a Republican or a Democrat in the White House, members of Congress should have a say in some of these negotiations and some of these decisions.
I'm wondering, is this kind of a bold move for someone in your party right now? Are you worried you're going to have any kind of target on your back from Trump allies for this bill, for speaking the way you're speaking?
Oh, I don't think so. I think a lot of us, would love to have some input into what's happening. In fact, we, on a daily basis, we're in contact with our White House colleagues, our liaisons, so that we can express the kind of things that we think are important in these kinds of things. But, Congress should have a say in something like this. It's our Constitution. It was granted in the Article 1 of the Constitution. This is a great time to raise this as an issue for consideration. And we're getting a lot of positive feedback from folks in Congress.
And sir, this may be a legal question, but you're a sitting member of Congress and you just raised it. Do you think the President of the United States has the power to unilaterally do tariffs in this way?
Well, I think he's using some laws that are on the books to as a basis for his authority here. So, I'm not in the judicial branch, so I can't make a decision whether or not that's solid or based in law. But like I said before, this is something that we as Congress should have a say in as well. And I think that, like I said, there's been a lot of people that are expressing interest in this legislation.
All right, well, we'll see where it goes. Congressman Newhouse, thank you so much for taking the time. Do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
A lot of angles to cover here. We are tracking how these changing tariffs are impacting businesses and consumers all across the country. The uncertainty could cause some real issues in the housing market, forcing homeowners and builders to make some pretty difficult decisions. And despite the new tariff pause, there remains real concern and uncertainty tonight. Our Jacqueline Lee reports.
As President Trump's on-again, off-again tariffs throw the markets for a spin, it's forcing business owners to scramble to project costs.
It's unnecessary wasted energy. For a lot of people, I'd rather focus on how do we make our client experience better, and we're spending time now thinking about how do we order materials faster, what can we lock in, how do we negotiate with our trade partners and our vendors.
And the lack of clarity has homeowners like Jen Hepner reevaluating the family budget.
So you've shifted spending when it comes to eating out,
absolutely, vacations, any of our disposable income, quite frankly, and then also we had wanted to start renovations on the house really now, but we're kind of worried about spending money on renovations and cash specifically.
Amid overall uncertainty and record low housing supply, Hepner says it makes more financial sense to slowly renovate rather than trade in her 3% interest rate for a larger home.
You can do it piece by piece. You do not need to have like a humongous down payment. It's just expensive to think about moving and to take on a bigger mortgage than what we currently have.
And she's not alone. Limited opportunities for homeowners to move and rising home equity have the home improvement industry confident about demand, according to a new report released by the National Association of Home Builders. Outlook is still positive, albeit a little lower amid tariffs.
I think in the very near term, you're going to see a 30-day cycle of people saying, hey, get me in now. How do I get to construction? How do I lock in prices?
Home remodeler Greg Harth saying tariffs will hurt in the short term by raising the cost of materials, but long term, it's cheaper for people to stay put and renovate. He says he's expecting a boom for that side of the industry.
I do believe that we're going to see a surge in immediate needs and requests, and I think long term, it will just reinforce the fact that to build a new home, even if it's a tract home, will be that much more, and the smart choice will be to renovate your existing home.
According to the Federal Reserve, about 70% of homeowners invest in the stock market. So when that goes down, so do their savings. The current housing market battling the lock-in effect, where homeowners don't have any incentive to sell their homes.
Many of them have mortgage rates at 3 or 4% from back when interest rates fell to record lows during the pandemic. And for them, it could mean thousands of dollars more to sell their home and buy something that is equivalent in price.
But until there's more financial certainty, Hepner says she's pushing her renovations to later in the year.
Definitely want to redo the cabinets.
With tariffs impacting the materials she chooses.
Also the counters, we're kind of leaning towards the quartz.
And quartz, is that because of cost?
When we researched all the things, all the costs of the different materials, quartz seems to be the most affordable, at the current moment, and it does have the look that we're looking for.
All right, Jacqueline Lee, thank you. The State Department is reporting that 9 U.S. citizens are among the dead at that scene of a catastrophic nightclub roof collapse in the Dominican Republic. The death toll has climbed now to more than 200. Victor Oquendo is in the Dominican Republic for us tonight.
With the death toll surging in Santo Domingo, tonight the State Department confirming 9 U.S. citizens are among the 221 people killed when the roof of a packed nightclub collapsed. The search for bodies ending today.
This is the entrance to the Jet Set nightclub. At maximum capacity, it can hold up to 1,000 people.
Maria Luisa Taveras and her family waiting in agony for any update on her missing sister, Luisa Maria.
What does she like to do?
My sister is a happy person. She worked hard, telling me, overcome with emotion. I hope that she is fine. That iconic club filled with concertgoers early Tuesday when witnesses say dust started falling from the ceiling into people's drinks. Video circulating online showing a man pointing at the ceiling as legendary merengue singer Ruby Perez performed on stage. Moments later, that roof caving in, plunging the club into darkness.
Victor Oquendo from the Dominican Republic tonight. And now to the American ballerina released by Russia in a surprise prisoner swap and who the U.S. is sending back to Russia. Here's ABC's chief international correspondent, James Longman.
This former American ballerina was facing 12 years in a Russian penal colony for donating just $52 to a charity for Ukraine. But tonight, in a surprise prisoner swap, Ksenia Karolina is free. Karolina was arrested while visiting family in Russia in February last year. The dual US-Russian citizen found herself sitting in that glass defendant's cage multiple times.
They released the young ballerina, and she is now out. We hope that we're going to be able to make a deal relatively soon with Russia and Ukraine to stop the fighting.
The late-night swap in Abu Dhabi was for this man, Arthur Petrov, who's been in US custody since 2023, accused of much more serious crimes, setting up fake companies to buy highly sensitive US electronic components for use by the Russian military in Ukraine.
Phil, this is another sign of warming relations with the Kremlin. Petrov may have been accused of some incredibly serious crimes, but the Trump administration is clearly hoping that it might help Vladimir Putin make that deal and stop the war in Ukraine. Phil?
All right, James Longman tonight. James, thank you. Tonight, President Trump's budget blueprint advanced after a House vote was delayed overnight by Republicans who wanted some deeper spending cuts. Today, Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune promised to find at least $1.5 trillion in more cuts. The House approved the measure, by the way, by 2 votes. Committees now in both chambers are set to draft legislation aiming to finish by the end of May. A whopping $1.4 billion deal was struck between 2 of the biggest names in fashion, making it the most lucrative luxury deal of the year. Prada announcing today it is buying rival brand Versace after Donatella Versace stepped down as chief creative officer of the brand earlier this month. The deal is expected to be finalized later this year and was approved by the boards of both companies. Coming up, the desperate search for a missing child as a deadly fire tears through a neighborhood. What fueled these flames? The current state of the stock market has many giving opinions for the first time, but a group of nuns have been doing it for years. How they're combining their activism with investment.
And the Catholic Church does not support the community. The community's always worked and supported ourselves. All religious orders do that, contrary to what some of the general public might believe.
Welcome back. As you know, we've been experiencing a volatile stock market as of late, leading many shareholders to raise concerns. But a group of nuns, certainly no stranger to telling corporations what they think. They've become shareholder activists, buying stock and then pushing those companies to change major policies. As our Elizabeth Schulze reports, fighting for a cause is nothing new to them.
I could show you my picture when I got arrested, trespass in Topeka. This is me. This is some of the protesters that I was with. I think about 16 or 18 of us got arrested.
Sister Barbara McCracken always considered herself an activist.
And we went into the office of our state attorney because of his rulings that we didn't care for regarding immigrants that we felt were unfair and unjust.
Pushing for change on issues like immigration and climate policy. But now, at this tranquil monastery 1 hour outside of Kansas City, she's at the forefront of a different kind of fight: shareholder activism. She's part of an unlikely group of nuns turned investors in the stock market, taking on some of the biggest companies in the world.
When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned. This is the file drawer full of past resolutions, and I'm not sure the total number, but it would be more than 200, I'm sure, and maybe more than 300 altogether.
Did you expect, when you joined the monastery, when you became sisters, that this would be part of your day-to-day?
Absolutely not. I thought I'd still be in a classroom teaching little third graders.
Instead, you're taking on Google, Amazon, McDonald's.
That's right.
This is where a lot of the work gets done, huh?
That's right.
Walk us through what we're looking at here with some of these resolutions. Yeah.
Surely. We're asking for freedom of association and collective bargaining, which really means unionizing, and this is for Amazon.
I see your title on this letter is shareholder advocate.
That's the title I use.
That's what you call yourself when you sign the letters.
Yeah, Sister Molly said that would be fine.
Barbara and Rosemarie Stahlbaumer invest at least $2,000 in a company's stock, which grants the sisters a seat at the table.
This is the Halliburton one.
They become shareholders, allowing them to submit and vote on resolutions every year on changes they'd like to see at some of these mega corporations.
We look at companies with child labor issues, employment policies, and how they treat their employees, whether the CEO gets a huge amount of the profits from the company rather than sharing it with them. I mean, it's for me, the human element.
Shareholder resolutions are just one part of daily life here. At the Benedictine Sisters of Mount St. Scholastica, the community of 80 nuns prays together 4 times a day.
Break the weapons of destruction and strengthen those who are defenseless.
Their practices dating back to the 6th century.
Oppress me by you, but they never questioned me.
Many of the sisters who've been here since they were young adults say they were called to come home, to their faith and to this monastery.
We bless you
And in this family, all of their possessions and money are shared.
One of our values as Benedictines is to share all things in common.
None of us has our own bank account. None of us has our own car. All of those things that people take for granted are not part of who we are.
The monastery is mostly funded through private donations and fundraising.
And the Catholic Church does not support the community. The community's always worked and supported ourselves. All religious orders do that, contrary to what some of the general public might believe.
So the sisters' investments in the stock market are a key source of revenue for the monastery's aging population.
Investing is something you do in order to grow the assets you have.
It's a delicate balance, investing in a company that's lucrative and also aligns with their Christian values. Last year, the sisters filed more than a dozen shareholder resolutions.
This particular newsletter has all the different resolutions that were filed in 24.
I mean, these are huge companies, household names,
Yes.
and billion-dollar plus, trillion-dollar for some of these.
They wanted Google's parent company Alphabet to adopt stricter rules for developing artificial intelligence, oil giant Chevron to establish an independent commission to monitor human rights, and Amazon and Verizon to put in place more transparent lobbying practices. None of these resolutions passed, and the companies did not respond to ABC News' request for comment.
Over the years, it's begun to make a difference. Some of these companies begin to want the input from the group on what should our policies on human rights look like.
A couple years ago, there was a big push for so-called DEI initiatives at companies, and now there's been pushback, people dropping those jobs, not prioritizing that anymore. What do you make of that shift? Is that good or bad?
We need to continue doing that. I mean, how else are we going to ever equalize the system?
The sisters acknowledge that change will take time. Patience is a staple of their faith.
It takes a long time. That's one of the blessings of religious communities, is we're in this for the long haul.
You've outlived all of these companies
Well,
on this list.
and the Benedictines will be around when they're gone.
That's right. We're here to stay.
Here to stay indeed. Elizabeth, thank you for that report. And still to come, a woman plots to kill her police officer ex-boyfriend and his daughter, how investigators uncovered her plan. And no crocodile tears here. A new study has asked people when and where they're letting the tears flow. Turns out everywhere, from their cars to movie theaters. We're going to take a look at where most Americans are crying a river by the numbers. Welcome back. A fascinating new survey from YouGov was curious to find out where, when, and how often Americans cry. The results were just published this week and are this evening's By the Numbers. 70% of those polled thought it was always or at least usually acceptable for people to cry in public. Beyond one's home, and that does include a funeral home, the most common public place to cry was in a car. 76% of women, 47% of men said that they had actually done so. The second most frequently cited public place to cry, a movie theater. 51% of women, 32% of men said that they had cried under the cloak of relative darkness. And you know that expression, there's no crying in baseball, seems to be true. Only 5% of adults said or admitted that they cried at a sporting event. And this was interesting. While 59% of adults said a sad movie or TV show was at least somewhat likely to make them cry, only 39% said the same of sad music. Researchers have long studied why women cry more than men, attributing it to a variety of hardwired biological and psychological factors. Women were twice as likely as men to say they had cried in the past day or past week. Still to come, dogs, cats, even birds of prey. We love our pets so much we consider them family, and Disney Plus has a new documentary celebrating that love called Pets. Our Ashin Singh sits down with actress and director Bryce Dallas Howard. And what started as the pursuit of a hit-and-run suspect Wednesday ended with the wife of Weezer's bassist being shot. We're going to tell you how it all went down and what she's charged with now when we come back. Welcome back. Flames almost burned through an entire neighborhood. The surprising turn that led to the arrest of a rock star's wife and how police stopped a murder for hire plot. These stories in tonight's rundown.
One child's body has been recovered, with law enforcement searching for a second child after a massive fire burned through several homes in Millville, New Jersey. Local officials say a ruptured gas line fed the flames, allowing the fire to jump from house to house. Officials have not determined the cause of the fire. An author who is married to a member of the rock band Weezer was arrested for attempted murder after police say she pointed a handgun at officers who were pursuing a hit-and-run suspect near her home in Los Angeles. Jillian Schreiner, also known as Jillian Lauren, was shot by police during the incident, suffering a non-life-threatening gunshot wound. Schreiner is scheduled to appear in court on April 30th. The Keystone Pipeline remains shut down after a massive oil spill earlier this week. Workers arrived in North Dakota to clean up after the pipeline spilled more than 147,000 gallons of oil. Officials say the cause of the rupture is unknown and was discovered after an employee heard a loud bang and shut down the system. It is unclear when the pipeline will resume operations. A New Jersey woman has been charged in an alleged murder-for-hire plot that targeted her ex-boyfriend and his daughter, according to the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. Investigators say Jacqueline Diorio connected with someone she did not know was a confidential informant, saying she'd pay $12,000 to have her 53-year-old ex, who is also a Philadelphia police officer, and his 19-year-old daughter killed. Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill was involved in a domestic dispute with his wife at his high-rise condominium in Sunny Isles Beach on Monday, according to an incident report obtained by a local news outlet. Hill's wife says she's filing for divorce. And the PGA Tour heads to Augusta National this week for the first major of the year, the 89th Masters Tournament. Defending champion and world number 1 Scottie Scheffler highlights a star-studded field looking to capture that iconic green jacket. The tournament starts today and will conclude in a final round on Sunday. This year's winner also receives a $3.6 million share of the $20 million purse.
And Friday is National Pet Day. In light of that, Disney Plus is releasing a new documentary called, appropriately, Pets. It explores the extraordinary relationships between humans and their often four-legged family friends around the world. Disney is, of course, the parent company of ABC News. The documentary highlights dogs, cats, pigs, even goats and owls, and their equally lovable human owners. ABC's Ashin Singh sat down with actress and producer Bryce Dallas Howard, who also, by the way, directs Pets. She discusses the journey celebrating love, loss, with plenty of licks along the way.
A lot of times when these animals come to us, they're broken in every way. You were so fast!
It's a lot of heartbreak, but it's a lot of special moments, too. That's a good boy.
Bryce, this documentary was adorable. Like, I remember sitting here watching it with my dog, Chef, and we were both, like, in our fields watching it with bated breath.
Oh, thank you.
What drew you to this project?
I think it was the feels, honestly.
You got me. You got me.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad, especially that you watch it with your dog. I love watching like pet content online. Like, I'm the person that will like send off 10 videos every single day to all of my friends of just like pets doing silly things online. Mm-hmm. I crave that for some reason. And when I was doing a documentary called Dads, I was like, we have got to do this, but with pets, we must.
I rescue cats for a living. It's okay, Mama. I would love for all the cats to have a forever home. That's forever.
It is definitely a wonderful experience to get to be a part of something that is meant to make people feel good, that is meant to be a celebration of love, honestly.
Without them, I don't know where I would be. Love is love is love.
So much about this documentary is appreciating those friendships that we do have with our pets. Did making this documentary sort of change the way you view your own animals?
Like what I learned while making Pets, 40% of households in the US have someone under the age of 18 living in them. 70% of households have a pet living in them. There are more people who can actively, way more people who can actively relate to having a pet in their home than having a child.
It's your new sister. Delilah, she's my child. To have another dog in the house, to give her a second lease on life and as she's getting older, is kind of the hope.
I just felt like, wow, this is a really deep relationship. For those of us who are in it, you know, there are varying degrees of sort of obsession and whether or not that's a cool thing. But it made me just doing pets, talking to people about their pets, talking to kids in particular about pets.
It was adorable, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. It just kind of gave me permission to just be a crazy pet lady. Like, that's okay. and I think that when I ask people about their pets, you see a side of them that you otherwise might not see, and it's a side of their humanity. That's a really beautiful thing.
What does it feel like to put out a project like this one that really just kind of changes the perspective people have on a simple thing like a dad or a pet, something that we often so take for granted?
The documentaries are definitely very personal. Even though Pets doesn't go into my own life or my own story with pets, it's something that I'm incredibly passionate about.
Having a pet is hard. Oh my God.
But it's a great journey.
Watching the documentary, one of the things that stood out to me was just how much, you take those little moments for granted when you sit and watch your dog just sleeping right next to you as you're watching a documentary like this one. Did it change how you interact with your pets on a day-to-day?
I think that, you know what, it's the gratitude. It's a reminder of just the gratefulness that I feel.
An animal just loving you unconditionally makes a connection with you just can't break. We both have cleft palates, so he just understands me a lot. Feels really nice.
Something that I realized is that, when humans interact with one another, because there's language, we think that we can change other people. We try to change other people, right? In the communication. But when you get a pet, you just accept that they are who they are. And you're not trying to change them other than a part, like if you can train them to go to the bathroom outside rather than inside.
But they accept you too.
And they accept you, exactly. And so there's something about this relationship that allows you to accept kind of the good, the bad, the ugly, and know that that's part of the fun. Like, you can't separate the pain and the pleasure. And I think that I'm definitely more present to that with my pets now that I've directed this movie.
They're like magical beings sent down here to help us live our life.
Oh, beauty.
I'm sure they love me, but they can't love me more than I love them.
Bryce Dallas Howard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching it with your dog.
It was awesome. I appreciate you, and thank you so much for this project.
Thank you.
Yeah, and our thanks to Ashin Singh and Bryce Dallas Howard for that. The new documentary, Pets, premieres on Disney Plus this Friday, April 11th. And that's our show for this hour. I'm Phil Lipoff. Stay with ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks for streaming with us.